So no matter the job that I was doing, I would always make time for music. And I think that that's the first point, is that I didn't know it at the time, but I think there was just something inside of me that had a desire and a need to create and to write music and to make beats and to express myself through that medium. And so that's the first point. That's when that's the first hallmark of a musician, I guess, like no matter what's going on in their life, you make
time.
Yeah.
I mean, we make time for the things that we love.
Right, exactly. And I never thought about it like that because I was just doing it. But so that's like the first that's the first point. And then I guess through sharing videos, I learned a lot about how I wanted to share my music with the world with visuals, because that's not something I'd ever considered before.
You mean music with visuals?
Yeah, and I mean not like music videos, but I mean like short beat making videos on Instagram, let's say.
It's a tutorial.
Tutorial is part of it, but not exclusively.
Okay.
I'd say most of my videos are basically me making beats with small moments of maybe sharing behind the scenes. Like on Instagram, I'll always now put like the chords that I'm using on the screen.
Yes.
Even if you don't know what that is, I think maybe that's quite interesting and stimulating to see what I'm thinking about or how I'm even making the sounds that you're hearing.
It helps me visualize what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea these keys. You name these keys.
Yeah.
It's like me saying a Blue Yeti mic. Most people are like, what's a Blue Yeti?
They might just know microphone.
They're thinking Monsters Inc. So Blue Yeti sat down I'm like, no, this thing right here is a Blue Yeti mic.
Yeah.
So the visualization of what you're doing is as important as actually what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Because it's a form of communication.
Yeah.
So as an architect, we're always taught that when you sketch or when you draw, you do it in a way that your client can understand. Because if I just gave you a 2D plan, as intelligent as you could be in your field, you're like, what the hell is this 2D plan?
Of course.
And if I saw a music sheet note or note sheet, and because it has all the typical, what are they? They look like cues backwards.
And they're like stems and like note heads and
stems. You say stems, I think plants.
Yeah.
And you think music.
There you go. I mean? Yeah, that's interesting. So like branding. So I think little things like that. But actually, it's weird because the videos I make and the music I make is just, I've never tried to, at this point, like compromise my own personal identity. So what I mean by that is the videos I make are just a accumulation of moments of trial and error to best communicate myself.
So how long does a 10-minute video actually take? Because a lot of your tutorials are around that length. So
the YouTube video. So I'm quite new to the YouTube space. I've posted 7 videos now weekly, which is so in its early days. I will film on average for about 90 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And then that'll be clipped down to 10 minutes. But you have to realize I'm not premeditating those videos. I might have some bullet points on my phone, but I'm not scripting things. I'm not, I am scripting in the extent of I have these 6 bullet points that I want to talk about, but then I will make music on camera in the moment. So essentially you're seeing an edited form of the genuine music making process, which is just, I guess, part of my brand. But actually that's just how I want to communicate with people. I don't want to try and fake it. I just want to be raw. And if the video ends up being rubbish, then that's fine. We don't need to post it, because I can't make good music all the time. And so
that's subjective as well.
Subjective, yeah.
As creatives, we're harsh on ourselves.
All the time.
So I'll turn around and I'll be like, this podcast was bad. And this is before I even release it. Yeah. Now, I might not mean bad enough that it can't be released, but I'm just harsh on myself. And I think, look, I want to do better. But that's because we are our own biggest critics. Yeah. And you have to be. Yeah. But you also have to believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
you should always carry yourself in a humble manner, but you yourself believe in yourself, and that's why you're here every day.
Yeah.
Because no one in their right mind thinks to themselves constantly, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, and then has the mental strength to carry on.
Of course,
So you believe in yourself. Matt,
Yeah.
once upon a time, 10 years ago, still
Yeah.
believed that Matt would
Yeah.
be somewhere.
Yeah.
Here, I don't know. I don't know what you envisioned for yourself, but you're here because you believe in yourself.
Yeah. 10 years ago, right? This is, yeah, that's really interesting. I just thought of like 3 points based on what you were saying. So, believe in myself 10 years ago. Funnily enough, 10 years ago, I started taking the piano seriously. I was listening to a lot of other producers, other people who were making beats like Jay Dilla, Madlib, Pete Rock, kind of like 90s hip hop producers. And I was listening to a lot of their stuff, a lot of their instrumentals. And there was a particular Jay Dilla track called Life, where he basically sampled a jazz record. And without going into too much detail, it was the closest thing that I'd heard that it was almost like a mirror that was playing the music that I imagined for myself back to me. It was like a crazy experience. So I found the sample that he used, and it was a Bill Evans record. Bill Evans is a jazz pianist. Highly recommend listening to his stuff if you haven't listened to jazz or taken the time to go down that path. Anyway, I had heard of Bill Evans but never listened to his stuff until hearing that record. And I spent that same evening listening to that the whole album. And literally the next day, I started playing the piano and taking it seriously. And what I mean by that is practicing piano every day. So I started listening to his records, trying to learn what he was doing by ear, replicate it on the piano, trial and error, until maybe I eventually get somewhere. But basically, 10 years ago, I kind of said to myself that one day what I would like to be doing is almost like making beats like Jay Dilla, like that track that I just heard. But Jay Dilla was sampling other people's recordings. So for those who don't know, sampling is where you might take a pre-existing record or song, take part of it, reimagine it, rework it into something fresh, speed it up,
slow it down.
So many different techniques. And sampling in of itself is an incredibly deep art form. But that wasn't something that I ever really got into. Instead, I heard that record and I thought, imagine a world where one day I might be able to play keys like Bill Evans, so play piano, jazz piano like Bill Evans, but make beats like Jay Dilla.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine a world like that. So 10 years ago, I wrote that down in so many words, and I guess today, whilst I don't play keys like Bill Evans or make beats like Jay Dilla necessarily, I think just having those role models who I'd obviously never met before, but just musical sort of role models, led to this path that I'm doing now. So it's almost like 10 years ago I set that intention. And today I'm kind of closer to that vision, which is really bizarre. I hadn't really thought about that until what you were saying.
It's the art of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then,
because I was going to ask you, and I think you've all kind of answered it, but there'll be more answers to this question, is why music?